right back at the beginning. Tell me where you were born.
Wow, so we are going...
We go right.
Do you want to know where I was conceived?
No, I do not.
I don't know where I was conceived.
They told me you were a joker, Ellie. I know this is going to be a wild interview.
Oh, okay. Did they really?
They did.
I was born in Lilydale, which is a suburb in Melbourne. I was born in Lilydale Hospital. My parents actually lived on a mountain and in a log cabin.
No way.
So I was
Are you
born,
making this up?
No, I'm not making this up. I was born at the bottom of the mountain in Lilydale Hospital, which doesn't exist anymore. But I was born with my twin sister, who was born 6 minutes after me.
What's her name?
Her name's Brittany, and she's the best person in the world. But yeah, I was born in Lilydale Hospital on the 12th of December in 91, and I haven't actually been back there since. So.
Really? So how long did you guys live in that area?
I think we lived there until I was about 5 years old. I have a few memories of that area, but not many. Like I said, we lived in a log cabin, and my mum, she'd made all the glass stained windows, and it was really homely home.
Storybook.
Yeah, it was amazing, and we had the fireplace, and it was an amazing place to grow up. And I would love to go back there and see and have a bit of a look around it, and I guess see what experiences I had and see if I have any memories come back. But I'm very fortunate of where I grew up, and grew up, I guess, in nature, and I still love nature to this day. So, yeah.
Wow. And other siblings? Just you and your sister, or?
No, I talk about my sister a lot, but I actually have an older sister as well who I'm really, really close to. We talk on the phone every day. We live in different states, so it's a little bit difficult. And I have an older brother as well, and he was really sick as a kid as well. So I think him and I have helped each other a lot through life, because we have both been through so many challenges with our health. So he's been a really important part of my life too.
And so then, as a little toddler, things didn't sort of go, I suppose, to plan for you. So
No.
do you want to share a little bit about that part of your life?
Yeah, I think when parents have their children, they always think that, they're going to be born 5 fingers, 5 toes, and they're going to have a healthy lifestyle. And I guess parents don't really think about bad things that can happen to their children. Unfortunately, one of those bad things did happen to me. I was diagnosed with a really rare form of cancer when I was 2 years old. My mum, she was changing me, and she found this bump behind my right knee, and she thought it was a spider bite. So she went to the hospital, I think the same hospital I was born at actually, and had it looked at. And they did biopsies and tests and came back to her and said that I had cancer. And I obviously didn't ask them how they coped back then when I was younger, but I do ask them about it now, and they told me that they really struggled with the concept of me being so sick. I know that my parents were fighting a lot at the time because of it, and it was a high stress, very stressful situation for my family to go through. I actually went through chemotherapy for an entire year through the Royal Children's Hospital, so I lost all of my hair on my body, my eyebrows and everything, and I was too young to understand what was going on at the time. My parents told me I had a naughty sore and that they were trying to fix it, but I didn't understand what cancer was. My twin sister didn't understand it either. And my twin Brittany, she actually thought that she had cancer as well.
Oh my goodness.
At the same time. And I think my parents told me that she was also getting pain in her right leg as well. And she was obviously too young to be making those things up, so I think she was really affected by it as well. But unfortunately, chemotherapy doesn't work on the cancer that I had. So I was trialling these different types, trying to find one that worked. And I was getting really sick. I was going through blood transfusions and everything. And I was stuck in hospital for a whole year. And in the end, my parents had to decide that they had to amputate my leg because I was having more blood transfusions than I was chemotherapy. So nothing was working, and they had to amputate it. And my twin sister, also thought she was going to have hers amputated. I think she was a bit jealous. But they amputated it on Valentine's Day when I was 3 years old. And they put a prosthetic leg on me in the operating theatre, and I still didn't know that anything was wrong until the prosthetic man, he had to come in and change the foot size on my leg. So he came in, and I think the foot was a bit too small, so he changed it to a bigger one, and they took my foot off, and that's when I realised.
As a little girl?
Hang on, that's not right.
That was when the penny kind of dropped, I suppose, that something odd was happening for you.
Yeah, and I always think people always ask me if I'm affected about what happened, and I always tell them how young I was and I didn't really understand it. But as I'm getting older, there are things that happen in life, like if I meet kids that have cancer, or if I watch a movie about cancer, like The Fault Within Our Stars or whatever it's called. Those things really affect me, and I think deep down, there's just those little trigger points that maybe bring up some memories, and I think it's more the fact I get upset because I think about what my family went through rather than what I went through.
Can't even begin to imagine.
It's horrible what cancer does to the whole support network of the patient. And I don't like to put my family through tough times. Like, I'm always there for my family. I try to make their lives easy. And I know it's not my fault I got cancer, but to think that I put them through something like that, you know, obviously it does upset me to some point, but they're an amazing family, so they were behind me the whole way.
So life would have taken a very different track from that point on for you then. One leg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One leg.
Yeah. And what was life like as a little girl?
Well, my parents were worried about how I would grow up with a disability. They had never met anybody that had a disability before. And back then it wasn't very well known, I guess, especially for young children, on how to handle someone with a disability. So I think my parents were a bit worried that they'd have to store me away in a cupboard like Harry Potter somewhere, but they didn't.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, I know. The day after I had my leg amputated, I was rolling up and down the hospital hallways on a skateboard, and I think that's when they realised that I was still their little girl, and I was still going to be exactly the same, except I was going to obviously have a few more challenges along the way, but they were there to help me through that. So growing up with one leg was, I guess, pretty similar to growing up with two, and I think it was just the way that I handled it and how my family handled it. They never treated me any differently. Even in swimming lessons, I was always with kids that had two legs. I was never segregated from anybody. So that, I think that was a really important thing for me growing up. And my twin sister was there every step of the way. She taught me how to walk again because I had to learn how to walk again. And I remember she taught me how to rollerblade, she taught me how to ride a bike, and all of those things that little kids do. My twin sister was there teaching me how to do all of that. So I grew up very confident in my abilities and pretty much believed that I could do anything else that someone with two legs could do. And, you know, my parents instilled that belief in me. And as I was getting older, people started saying, maybe you should sit this out, or maybe you shouldn't try this.
Wow.
And I think that's when people started putting a little bit of doubt in me and saying, hang on, is there a reason why I shouldn't be able to do this? But luckily, I chose not to listen to those people and kept just giving things a go. And swimming was one of those things, and something that I was really good at.
So swimming you got into initially for a different reason though, right? So swimming was part of your rehab and your treatment, right?
So my parents enrolled me into swimming lessons 8 weeks after my leg was amputated. And that was to learn coordination and I guess to get my muscles moving again without putting too much trauma on my body. I was actually standing up on my prosthetic leg 2 days after my amputation, but then I had to learn to swim again and I guess to get that exercise and that movement back. I was swimming around in circles for a while, which I think is pretty funny. I think my parents had my first swimming video somewhere.
Some people live their life that way.
I know.
It's all good.
I had a good reason though.
That's right.
But it didn't take me long to swim in a straight line, and from then on.
And fast.
I
Not just a straight
think
line,
I was
fast.
pretty slow as a 3-year-old. It took a lot of practice to get fast, but I started swimming in a straight line and loved the water. My whole family have swum, and my mum was a swimmer, my granddad was a swimmer, and my older brother, he's a really good swimmer, and so is my sister. So I think it's in my family, and it's just something I love to do. And having a disability and getting in the water, I was just a body in the water, just like anybody else was. And I recognised that from a young age and thought, hang on, I could be so much better at someone else in this sport. And there's not many sports that I'm better. Like, I do give it a good go and I try to be competitive, but swimming's one of those things where I can really smash someone.
You can.
And I'm very competitive. I think having a twin sister is the reason behind that. But
Are you faster than her in the water?
well, she hasn't swum for a while. I've done a lot of training, so I think I would be, but I think if she continued her swimming and her training, she would have been really, really good as well.
It's awesome. And so swimming's not the only sport you've dabbled in though, is it?
No.
You've done some other things?
Yeah, I try a bit of everything. In high school, I did a bit of athletics, and I want to a second place ribbon in the hurdles, but there were only 2 people in the race. So I still won second place.
That's
though.
the good way to look at it.
I've loved doing everything. I love doing gymnastics, rock climbing, swimming, cycling. I do a lot of cycling, but I took up wheelchair basketball after the London Paralympics, and that was something I absolutely loved and have a real passion for. It's a bit dangerous for me to do at the moment heading into Rio, so I've stopped doing it, but I've promised the wheelchair basketball team that I will be back after Rio and training with them again.
Wonderful.
It's crazy sport.
It sounds wild.
It's ruthless.
And I hear you've got a bit of a wild streak, so I can see you doing that.
Yeah, I think one of the things about wheelchair basketball when I first started is I had no skills whatsoever in basketball, but I was really aggressive, and so I didn't mind knocking someone over in a wheelchair if it got them out of the way. So people really liked having me on their team just purely because of the aggression that I had. And I had really strong shoulders from swimming, so I think that was another strong point. But I had no sense of the game. I didn't know how to play the game. I just got in there and I think just pushed my chair around a bit.
So, Ellie, at what point did you realise that swimming was going to become more than just something that you did to keep fit and, keep yourself in good shape? So it's changed from that to being something that's really, it's your whole life at the moment. So do you remember at what point that sort of the penny dropped that I'm actually really good at this?
That's a good question. Well, for my whole family, we had to go through the Learn to Swim program. So that was really important for my parents. We have to go through Learn to Swim program and we have to get a university degree. So they're two completely different things. So I went through my Learn to Swim program and I got to the end of it, and my parents asked me, do you want to continue with squad swimming or would you like to try something else? And I really wanted to be a netballer and a ballerina, and I don't know why, because I don't really like either of those 2 things now. But I said that to my parents, and they asked me, how about you just try swimming in a squad and see what you think of it? So I went along, and my coach, Russell Parsons, he went for the Melbourne Demons football team, and I also went for that team. And I told him that on my very first session, and he got really excited, and he treated me like an absolute princess just because of that reason. So I was treated really, really well on my first squad session, and I really liked that. So I kept going back purely because I think I got favourite over everybody else straight away, just because I went for the Melbourne Demons. And I always think back to that moment and think if he didn't go for that football team, I wonder if I would still be a Paralympian. Wow. And it's funny that those little things can divide and change someone's whole life, and you don't think of it at that time. But I absolutely loved training with him, and I think he gave me a real passion for the sport. So I continued my squad swimming, and I never really thought I was good at it. All I wanted to do was just beat everybody else there. Like I said, I was really competitive. And when it came to kick sessions, so just using your legs, obviously I had a massive disadvantage. But one of the things I always wanted to do was still beat them. And it's funny, kick is one of my stronger parts of my swimming now, even though I only have one leg. It's all that training. And so I really wanted to just be the best person in that squad, regardless of ability or disability. And just by doing that, I found myself on an Australian swim team at 14. Wow. So that was crazy. I went to the trials just because I'd qualified to go and thought, yeah, I'll give it a good go. I'll try to get on the swim team, but, if I don't, I'll just go back to swimming with Russell. And I qualified, and I couldn't believe it. Amazing. I was off to South Africa at 14. I was in year 9 at school and made a senior Australian swim team. And that's when I realised that
I'm good at this.
I'm good at this.
I think there's something in this.
So that was amazing.
Yeah, that's
that was
terrific.
A good experience.
So who were some of the major influence? Obviously mum and dad and your siblings, but other than family, who were some of the major influences in your life growing up?
I think Russell, my coach, was one, just purely because he made swimming so much fun. And I think with sport and with swimming, it teaches you a lot about resilience. It teaches you a lot about winning and losing. And I think that was partnered really well with my disability, that sometimes things don't always go your way. So I think there was a really good partnership with him, because I think the disability and the swimming complemented each other really well. So I'd say Russell was a big influence, and he was the catapult into my entire swimming career. And I haven't seen him for a good decade, but I wish he understood how much he contributed to what I'm doing now. So he was really important to me. And there were a few school teachers along the way, as everyone has their school teachers that completely changed their life. And
what were you like as a student?
I was a terrible student. I was horrible. it was funny. I mentioned I went to the World Championships, and I was really, really good student up until then. And then when I came back from the World Champs, I'd been away on such a rush and such a high, and I was in an environment with adults, and I grew up a lot over there, and I guess I learnt the traits of adults, but I still had the mentality of a teenager. Right. And when I came back, I really struggled with everything. I didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't know what direction I wanted to go in. And I all of a sudden hated swimming for no reason. I all of a sudden hated school for no reason. And I hated everything.
It just sounds like typical teenage
I think it's a typical
to
teenager.
Me.
Yeah, I coach swim kids now, and I'm seeing some of them go through it, and I feel sorry for them because I understand how tough it is to be a teenager. And I think I just hit that hormones and coming back from the World Champs and having a disability and not knowing how to handle that or how to handle anything was really tough. So from year 9 until about end of year 10, I was a horrible student. I skipped school for about 6 months, and I wasn't turning up to classes, and I wasn't turning up to training.
What were you doing?
Well, it's funny. I would get up to go to training in the morning. I would ride my bike to the pool, and my pool was at my school. So I would just sit in the corridor and completely skip training and just wait for school to start. And then when school started, I'd just go up to the McDonald's up the road and read the newspaper for
my goodness,
couple of hours. I don't know what I was thinking. If I caught any of my school swimming students doing that now, I'd knock their head off. But,
so did Mum and Dad find out about that behaviour?
Yeah, so Mum actually found out, but she couldn't sleep one morning, so she went to swimming training to watch me swim. She loved watching me swim, and I wasn't there. And she started panicking. She thought that I'd been hit by a car on the way to training, and that's when she realised that something was a bit wrong, because my coach said she hasn't been here for months.
And sitting in the corridor?
Just sitting in a corridor at 6 o'clock in the morning. So that was a bit odd. I don't know what I was thinking. So, yeah, she all of a sudden started panicking, and she thought that I was taking drugs.
Oh, well, you would.
And because I was just not turning up to anything, I wasn't coming home, I wasn't at school, I wasn't really anywhere. So she was getting really worried and started taking me to counselling, and I think that really helped.
Oh,
wow. I have no idea what caused all of that drama in the end. I can't explain it, but I was horrible. I actually had this English teacher, and I was probably the worst student I could ever be to him. And he was only at the school for a year. He left after having me for 1 year.
You wore him out.
I wore him out. I feel terrible. I've tried to actually find him and apologise, because I feel like I'm very different
Let's
now.
hope he sees this.
I hope he sees this. Sorry.
She's sorry. She's very sorry. What's his name? Do you remember his name?
Johnny Pitt.
There you go, Johnny. She's sorry.
I called him Johnny because I didn't have the respect for him back then to call him Mr. Pitt, but I call him Mr. Pitt now. So
there you go, Mr. Pitt. Ellie is very sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was horrible.
Yeah. So you got back on track, obviously.
I got back on track, and I started training for Beijing, and I think I just needed a real goal to train for. Yep. Coming back from World Championships, the space between World Championships and the Paralympics was 2 years, and I think that was just too long. So I didn't have, I guess, a purpose to anything. So when Beijing became a little bit closer in 2008, I think that's when things started turning around. You know, I was committed to something and dedicated to something, and I think I really needed that.
So tell me about the Olympics. What's it like to go to the Olympics?
It's so hard to explain. So making your first Olympic or Paralympic team is something that's huge. You know, when you first start a sport, you always say you want to win a gold medal at the Paralympics, or you want to win a gold medal at the Olympics. And then to be chosen on a team and have an opportunity to do that, I think it's a lot. I don't know, you get there and you just all of a sudden realise this is a lot bigger than what I thought it was. And, you know, there's training camps that you have to attend, and there's requirements that you have to meet along the way to make sure that you keep your position on the team. And all of a sudden you've got this really big responsibility, and you've also got to juggle school time as well. So it's amazing. I absolutely loved it, being part of a team and part of the culture, and really being part of something that was much bigger than I was, or that I'd ever been part of anything before. So heading over to Beijing, I was 16 years old, and
what an incredible experience.
I was so young. I think back to when I was 16, and I'm so different now. But
Did family go with you?
Yes, my family goes everywhere with me. They're an amazing support network. But when you get over there, you go into this village, and it's a whole village just for you. And there's a nail salon, and there's a hair salon, there's a post office. They've even got a fire station. And at night time, everyone's gone to bed. I used to take my bike and just ride around the village and have a look at everything. And they have a free McDonald's in the dining hall.
Back to Macca's.
Back to Macca's I
again.
know.
It's a bit of a
I don't eat McDonald's anymore. Brings back bad memories. But the dining hall is huge, and they've got every single food you can think of there. And of course, there's a competition as well. You know, the competition is just second to none. People train for this moment for 8, 9, 10 years, and all of a sudden it comes down to a 1-minute race. Yeah. So, you know, you have to be really switched on. And I thought I was training hard for Beijing, but in hindsight, I don't think I was training to the best of my ability. I think that just came with maturity of being an athlete. But I came home from Beijing with a silver medal. And it's just absolutely amazing standing on the medal podium and just looking up into the crowd and seeing your family and seeing people that have been there from day one of your life, literally. And I'll never forget my mum hanging over the railings. She'd found her way into the VIP area somehow. I think she just snuck in, and she was hanging over the railings like such a dag, and she had tears coming out of her eyes, and she was just hopeless. And I'll never forget that, just looking at that. And then getting to throw your flowers up to them and having them catch them and just go absolutely crazy.
And we get to see that on TV.
Yes.
Beautiful.
But
very special.
Mum she's really embarrassing when she goes overseas. She plans her outfits. She's already planned her outfit for Rio. She's going as a convict.
Oh my goodness.
I know. And oh no, what's she going as? Oh no,
she's know where you get your sense of humour from.
She's dressing up as like a kangaroo or something, and she's got this hat with like kangaroos hanging off it. But in London...
She's Australian.
Oh, she's so embarrassing. In London, she had this Australian flag cape, and she had Australian flags sticking out of her hair, and... Oh, she's ridiculous.
Can't miss that.
And then every time I won a gold medal, she'd go to the pub, and the television crews would be there to, I guess, get the reactions of the family. And she'd be on cloud nine, and she was Irish dancing. She was even crowd surfing in a pub.
Oh my goodness.
And she became quite famous for just the way she reacted. She's a bit of a party animal. And when we had Paralympian of the Year, when we got back to Australia, they did a whole segment on my mum.
Oh, wow.
She's
Paralympian Parent of the Year.
Oh, she 100% is. She's a big fan. So yeah, I told her that in Rio, when I walk out onto pool deck, I'm not looking up at her.
You will.
No, I don't want to see what she's wearing, because that's the first time I'm going to see it.
She'll be in full carnivale regalia.
I'll wait until after. I'll probably touch the wall and just shake my head at her. But I just love how she gets into it so much.
Sounds like a great family.
They are a really good family.
Obviously, training and preparing for an Olympic campaign is very demanding on your time and I guess the finances of your family. How have you funded all of this? Our whole family coming over. You've got me crying now.
Why?
I don't know. It's so awesome. And so, how have you managed, how's your family financed this career of yours? It's obviously, you're not just doing this at the local pool, you're travelling around the world.
Yeah.
How do you do it?
It was really tough growing up. Obviously, when I was 12 years old, I wasn't looking into the budgeting of the Cole family. I didn't have anything to do with that, lucky me. But I look back now and...
So is it something that you had your family just... That's our responsibility. Yeah.
Yeah.
You just focus on the swimming, and it wasn't even an issue for them, or that you were even aware of.
No. I honestly, they never mention anything. I know that there were some really tough financial times in my family, and it caused a lot of stress between my mum and my dad. But they always hid that from us, and we didn't find out about any of that till we were older. So I know that they went to drastic lengths to fund my swimming goal, which I 100% appreciate now. And, when you're going through grassroots swimming, it's really expensive. You have to fund everything yourself. Once you start making Australian swim teams, back then we got very little funding. I think it was about $5,000 a year. But all of that went towards massage and physio. Having a disability, I needed a lot of physio, especially with swimming and my disability combined. But... it was really tough for my family growing up. Like I said, my brother was sick. He had Crohn's disease, and he was diagnosed when he was 8. So
no wonder your mum celebrates when you win a medal. Yeah, or you do well in a race.
So Mum was spending all of her time taking care of him when he was a child, and so my dad was out working and trying to, make enough money to support 4 kids and a 6th son and her as well. And then I was born, I got cancer, so that was another blow to the family. So mum had to take care of me and him, and my dad had to go out and fund a family of 6 by himself. So I think back and I don't know how they did it.
How are you doing that yourself now that you're an adult and you're living out of home? And what do you do? Obviously you're training long hours. You're getting up at ridiculous times of the night to go prepare, but you've got to work as well, I believe.
Yeah. So after Beijing, I moved to the AIS in Canberra. I lived there for 3 years, and that was a fully funded scholarship. And I was like, this is awesome, happy days. I get all my food paid for, all my training paid for, all my travel paid for. But then after London, I didn't have a scholarship anymore. So I came home and I didn't swim for a while. But then when I started getting back into swimming, I wasn't living at AIS anymore. I wasn't living at home anymore. And all of a sudden, all these financial costs started coming up. And I was like, hang on, I've never had to deal with this before. Where are my parents here? But, you know, I always made it that when we turn 18 in our family, you know, we're flying solo. We have to make sure, like, they're obviously going to be there in case of, you know,
emergency,
bankruptcy.
Cool.
But, you know, we really have to find our own way in the world. And I think that's been a really important lesson that my parents have given me, is that it's really important to find your own way in the world. So all of a sudden I had to fund this Paralympic journey and fund going to Rio. And that really started off with having shoulder reconstructions. Yeah. And that in itself, that was a very expensive start. So I had to, you know, pay for these shoulder reconstructions and then pay for all of my rehabilitation. And then all of a sudden, when I was recovered and when I could swim again, you know, all these other costs started coming up. And I was thinking, you know, I'm trying really hard to represent my country here. I really want to do well in Rio. I want to win. Yeah. I've got to find a way to fund this journey, and, you know, swimming's something that's so passionate to me, and getting the message out into the community of what people with disabilities can do and what Paralympians can do for the community is really important to me. So I want to make sure that I do a really good job heading into Rio. But, you know, there are always going to be hurdles that come along the way. I'm studying university at the moment, and I'm trying to train to be a Paralympic gold medalist in Rio. So, you know, I actually do work as well. I work as a swim coach. So I'm up really early in the mornings, up at 4 a.m, and I train in the mornings, and then I work as well so that I can pay for my training, I can pay for my travel. And one of the biggest things about being a swimmer is the amount of food we eat.
Yeah, I can imagine your food bill must be huge.
The food bill is probably about triple of anybody else's. My housemate eats like a bird, but when she looks at what I eat, her eyes just go really wide. Yeah, so I do love to eat, and I've got to eat to recover and get ready for my next training session.
So do you have any sponsors, Ellie? Is sponsorship something that, you know, is an opportunity for you as a swimmer? Yeah. Is that something that Paralympians that's open to as opposed to Olympians? I know we see some of the high-profile able-bodied athletes getting big corporates behind them. Is that something that's become easy to you as well?
Yeah, sponsorships obviously are going to be one of the biggest factors behind any Paralympian success in Rio, but the hurdle is that we really struggle to find sponsors. And I know that the perception of Paralympic sport is drastically changing, and that's happened from London. And you know, Paralympics is going to be aired on Channel 7 for the first time, and it's as competitive as it's ever been. And, you know, we've got athletes with disabilities that have been training their whole lives, and, you know, that's amazing in itself, but to have to overcome a disability and to have to overcome limitations along the way is another huge thing. So, you know, to be able to fund those dreams, we do need sponsors, but we are finding them exceptionally difficult to come across. And I find it frustrating at times because I know, like I said before, that we have a really important message to send across.
You do have there's some amazing messages coming through in just talking with you today about resilience and strength and, you know, having a can-do attitude, and who better than you to take that message out there? And you would think the corporate market would eat that up.
Yeah, definitely. And I've noticed just even in the last few years that the perception of disability is changing. And I think Paralympics plays a huge, huge, huge role in that. You know, 5 years ago, I had a man approach me and tell me that it was really good that I was outside in the community. And I couldn't believe he was saying things like that, because I'm a Paralympian and, you know, I like to push the boundaries a lot, and he thought that me stepping outside my doors was pushing the boundaries. Wow. But, you know, since London 2012 and now that Rio's coming up, people are seeing that people with disabilities and, you know, Paralympians, instead of looking at what disabilities they have and what disadvantages they have, people are starting to switch their focus and looking at the abilities instead. Yeah, that's great. And,
it's a different message altogether, isn't it?
Yeah. And actually, I'm doing a subject at university at ACU down the road, and we have to really, you know, get active, and we're running around a lot. And my lecturer, he's been great, you know. He won't give me any excuses or anything. And, you know, I was even playing basketball last week at uni, and I was up for jump ball. And
wow.
So just the fact that he was doing that was a great thing.
Don't tell your coach.
No, I won't. But, you know, I absolutely love having the opportunity to get out there amongst the community and really spread the message.
So any corporate that is considering partnering with an athlete like yourself, there's obviously opportunities for you to be able to contribute and give to their organisation as well through appearances, mentoring, you know, bringing that great message to their team. I imagine there'd be a good opportunity there. So hopefully as a result of some of this, you might pick up some sponsors.
Yeah, I think one of the best things about, you know, having a Paralympian involved with a company is obviously teaching them all about resilience. But I think one of the biggest things that Paralympians do is really puts things into perspective. And that's one thing I've learned along my Paralympic journey is, you know, I'm considered one of the least disabled Paralympians out there. And when I go to a Paralympic village, there are people there that have no arms that are still eating with their feet. Wow. And, you know, you might think your life is tough sometimes, but you look at other people and other Paralympians and how they're handling any situation or how they're overcoming any kind of limitation, and it really puts things into perspective.
Yeah, you know, a lot of us need that.
Yeah.
We definitely do. So looking forward, you've got a big campaign now going into Rio. What's that look like for you? So what are your days like at the moment? You've been up since 3:45 this morning?
Yeah, so I wake up at 3:45 in the mornings, and that's really tough in itself. Coffee usually gets me through the day, but it's really hard to get up that early in the morning and approach training with a 100% attitude, but it's just what you've got to do. So, you know, I get up at 3:45, it takes me 20 minutes to drive to training, and I mentally prepare for myself in that time for what lies ahead. And then in the pool for 2 hours in the morning. And then, like I said, I work after, and then I do my strength and conditioning session in the gym, and that is ridiculously hard. And I've been working with a really good strength coach at the RSL, Castle Hill RSL. And at the end of every single session, I'm almost at the point where I can't even stand up anymore. And it's so hard knowing that that's coming ahead. So before my training session, I'm just thinking about how much pain I'm about to go through. But, you know, as you're doing it, you think about the end goal, you think about why you're doing it, and it really gets you through it. But that's really, really helping me. So I'm training harder than I ever have before. You know, I want it more than I ever have before, because I know it is hard winning a gold medal, but it's harder to win a gold medal at the next games as well. So I don't want to be a one-hit wonder. Yeah. I want to keep doing it for as long as I can.
I have a feeling gold is on the horizon for sure.
I hope so.
And what about beyond swimming? What about when your swimming career's over? What have you got in mind? So you're studying now. What are you studying?
Exercise science.
And so is that the future for you beyond swimming, do you think?
Look, when I started studying at university, I was at the Australian Institute of Sport, and I wanted to be a biomechanist. But I think being around that environment for so long, I really got to see what it was all about. And I think my passion is more working for people and their health, particularly with other people that have disabilities. So I'm starting to look more into a rehabilitation side of things. I would absolutely love to work with people that have, you know, just lost their legs and think their world might be over, and, you know, showing them that it's just starting and how good it is to have a disability and how much fun it can be, you know.
Who better to do that than you, Ellie?
Yeah, it can be pretty fun at times.
Fantastic. Well, good luck in Rio. We wish you all the very best. There will be a whole country behind you cheering you on, just like your crazy mum.
Yeah.
And we wish you all the very best, and thank you very much for being here today and sharing your story with us.
Thank you. It was fun.